pretty trinket for a desperate vow.
That was a promise I made. So be it.
2 weeks ago, I was a college kid who had never held a sword. Yesterday, I killed 10 men. I never even touched them. The girl did not beg, even from the cliff, even through the rush of blood in my own ears. I remember that clearly. She called for help. She never begged. Her dress was torn at the collar. A mercenary had her pinned in the dirt with that low laugh men use when they think no one is coming, telling her it was a dead end, telling her no one helps anyone in a wilderness this big. I spoke into her mind. One sentence. Calm. Run toward the sun. She ran. The leader's head came apart before he understood the sound. The others died in the space between 2 breaths. Reeve dropped from the cliff, silver wolf-cut hair catching the light, amber eyes already narrowing on what was still alive. She finished the rest in under 20 seconds and never spoke while she worked. I came down after, hood up, because I did not yet have the face to wear openly. I pulled it back only when the girl stopped trembling. Black hair, black eyes, rare in this world. I knew what the rarity meant even then. I just didn't know what it would cost me. I told her she was safe. I told her my name was Helion, and because this is my story, not hers, I have to be honest before we rewind. I had never watched a person die, not in real life, not up close, and standing on that cliff with the wind pulling at my hood, looking down at 10 bodies that used to be men, I understood, for the first time, all the way down, that I was never going home the way I came. One small thing before we rewind. If this has already pulled you in, hit like, subscribe, so you do not miss what happens next, and drop the city you are watching from in the comments. I want to know where this story found you tonight. Back up. 2 weeks before that cliff, I was a college student named Misaki Tsukasa, standing on a marble podium in a parade down the main avenue of my VR capital, smiling at monsters I had built from nothing. 150 in-game years earlier, I had started in a hut on a bare plain with 3 gacha pulls, a wolf pup, a low-rank magic cat, an ordinary elf. From those 3, I had grown a superpower, Alchimera, 8 legions, over 100,000 monsters. I remember being faintly bored. That is the part I keep coming back to. Nostalgic for the early days, when a new patch was a gift. Reeve escorted me to the podium, and I caught myself thinking, in that small, embarrassing way, that I had seen her walk this way 100 times before. Then the noise came. Visual static, auditory static, a dropped sensation in my stomach, like the floor had gone soft. When my eyes cleared, the plain was gone. A forest stood in its place, dense, old, wrong, trees that were never in the patch notes. The map I pulled up out of instinct showed a single bright dot where my capital sat, and everything else gray. Every other player name in the lobby had gone gray too. Logout refused. The GM call rang into nothing. I told myself it was an event, a dev drop, a god trial questline they hadn't announced. I ordered the legions to assess. I convinced myself I was excited. Back in my office, the excitement lasted about 10 minutes. Reeve reported. The forest had illusion effects that even the 8th Legion's dragons couldn't fully pierce. Then, without any key phrase from me, she answered a thing I had only muttered under my breath. The AI in this game was not supposed to hear muttered things. I reached out, slowly, and touched her cheek. I felt warmth, a pulse, the small motion of breath under my thumb. The game does not do warmth. The game has never done warmth. I pulled my hand back, told her it was nothing, and shouted at her to leave and organize the reports. My voice went higher than I wanted it to. When the door shut, I opened the desk drawer and took out the silver letter opener I never used. Pure silver. A game material, a real-world material, both. I drew it across the meat of my left hand before I could talk myself out of it. Pain, real pain, blood, red and slow, pooling into the seam of my palm. I sat down very carefully, the way you sit when the floor drops. I did not say the word isekai out loud, not yet. I just wrapped the cut with a strip of cloth and watched my hand shake. Reeve came back, ears down, tail down. She apologized for nothing she had done, the way loyal people apologize when they think the weather is their fault. She smelled the blood on my hand. She had that kind of nose, and offered to treat it. I told her no. Then I apologized, because I owed her that, and told her to summon the commanders. She wanted the 3rd commander first, the healer. She didn't mention my hand. She didn't have to. I met 4 of them in the audience chamber. Reeve, 1st Legion, my shadow. Baran, 2nd Legion, lion-headed, white-armored, chivalry and discipline made into a person. Ertina, 3rd Legion, gold hair to her waist, gentle, the one who healed my hand before I could refuse. Camilla, 6th Legion, red eyes, gothic collar, a voice like smoke. I explained the situation as if I had already solved it. Stay hidden. Reconnaissance north with Reeve and Ertina. Internal security to Baran. Covert support from a handful of Camilla's stealth unit. 15 minutes, North Gate. I said, I trust you, because a king says that. And behind my ribs, every mechanic I knew by heart was screaming. The rebellion system. Loyalty drops. One sword arm, any of theirs, could end me in a second. I had 0 combat stat. I had been safe in this world for 150 years because the numbers said so. The numbers felt thin now. I left before anyone could ask a question I had no answer to. That is the trick. You leave first. You panic in private. So of course, an hour later, I made it worse. I went to the North Gate to see Reeve and Ertina off. A small morale gesture, a kind king thing. I said one throwaway line, something about how it reminded me of the old exploration days. And somewhere in there, I used a plural pronoun I should not have used. And that was enough. An honor guard was already arrayed across 300 meters of cobblestone when I arrived. Attendants lifted the ceremonial cloak off my shoulders before I could stop them, folded it into black velvet, and fitted me into expedition gear, light gauntlets, greaves of synthesized dragon scale, a traveler's cloak. Reeve knelt and swore on her life to protect me. Ertina bowed, and Baran, who took everything I said as holy writ, commanded the guard to salute the expedition team, led by His Majesty himself. The whole square lifted their swords. I stood there in borrowed armor and realized, very quietly, that I had just been understood. Corrections were no longer available. Retracting now meant looking like a king who ran, and loyalty points I could not afford. So I smiled. I said, well then, let's go. I walked through the gate at the head of a 7-person survey team, Reeve, Ertina, and 5 of Camilla's silent demons, into a forest that had not existed that morning. Inside, I was screaming. Outside, I looked like a man who had meant to do this all along. That was me. That was day 1. 2 weeks later, a black-haired stranger would pull back his hood over a girl in a torn dress and tell her calmly that she was safe now. By then, a lot of things would be different. By then, I would have died once, and it would not have been the forest that did it, but the forest was where it started. So that is where we will go. The forest closed behind us before any of us spoke. The gate had been loud. 10 steps in, nothing. Just our boots, and Reeve's tail brushing the back of my cloak whenever I slowed. Ertina tilted her head, the way a deer tilts before it bolts. The forest's voice, I can barely hear it. I pretended, as I had all day, that I already knew what that meant. The tactical map told the truth. Illusion bled across the window like ink in water. Then Reeve stopped and lifted her chin. A wolf came out of the brush 60 meters ahead, 5 meters at the shoulder, gray fur, red eyes, jaws open. Reeve looked at it. That is all she did. Its ears flattened. Its legs folded the way dogs fold when a bigger dog walks into a yard, and it ran. It's weak, Reeve said. Right, I said, like a king who had arranged the whole encounter. Her old stat line surfaced behind my ribs, mythic tier, and I realized the game's numbers and the world's were the same, which meant my own number was 2, 0. Ertina's hand went up. Scream, northeast. Reeve knelt, held out her arms. Excuse me, my lord. My pride took it on the chin. Her pride was in the carrying. I let her. The girl we found was robed in green, running with a dog-shaped thing at her heels. Black hide, red veins, eyes the wrong color. Ertina, wind blades. She spoke a word. The thing came apart. No catalyst. The girl went down into the moss. Her hood slipped. Blonde, semi-long hair. Green eyes. Ears pointed only partway. Half. Her eyes found me. Black hair. Black eyes. The part of this world that got her attention hardest. Are you hurt? I said, trying to sound like a traveler. She bowed. Thank you for saving me. That was when the arrow came. Ertina had already moved. Wind of protection. And it shattered on nothing a meter in front of me. The elf stepped into the clearing. Pure elf tall. Hunter garb. Pale hair tied back. Ears sharp as a knife's edge. He looked at her the way men look at things they intend to step on. He said, and I will paraphrase because I will not give him the room, that she was impure, defiled, a stain on a creation beloved of gods and spirits. He said, purging like it was kind. Then he fired again, at me this time. Ertina's vine slid out of the moss and bound his wrists, and Reeve moved. Wait, one word. flat. She stopped mid-motion. Her tail went still the way a blade goes still when a hand closes on the hilt. I would like to tell you I stopped her out of wisdom. The narrator will not let me. I stopped her because I had never seen a person die with my own eyes. Because under the kingly clothing, I was still a college student who had not chosen what he was willing to become. I told him to go back to Noblewood, that I would not be generous twice. He sneered, said we would see each other again. I had just made a mistake. The elf I spared carried a grudge home, and in a few weeks, half-elves would bleed for the cleanness of my hands. The girl was still looking up. I coughed. My name is Helion, and because the universe has a sense of humor, she laughed. A small, startled laugh through the leftover fear. Rafa, she said. My name is Rafa. We walked after that. Latestwood, she told me. 30 years old, founded by a half-elf who decided persecuted people needed a place to stand. 3 weeks ago, Noblewood had attacked without warning, burned with a fire magic elves usually refuse against their own forest. Her mother was missing. She was 15, acting queen, and she said acting the way people say things they do not believe. When she asked about my hair and eyes, I changed the subject. At the edge of the trees, she drew a green stone, sketched a circle, summoned another half-elf out of the ground. Older, bow drawn. She saw Ertina and knocked. Rafa put a hand on her wrist. They saved me. Wenry, her name, lowered the bow a quarter inch. Behind her was the settlement. Stone houses, tents. A crowd that went quiet the way crowds go quiet before something goes wrong. Rafa raised her voice, told them I had saved her, gave her full name, Rafa Rim Latentwood, and I felt the word princess land below my ribs and stay there. Wenry asked, in the voice warriors use, whether we were really travelers. I did what the college version of me would have done, focused her suspicion on one point and disproved it. I opened a magic bag. Rive pulled out rice, meat, clear water. Volume no bag that size should hold. We have food, I said. Please, share it with us. The tension did not break. It leaked. Wenry lowered the bow. Old women came forward with bowls. Reeve crouched by a fire pit and cooked chicken sauté like she had been waiting for it. Then a small person hit me in the hip. She was 10, looked older, human blood, she told me later. Silver white hair, a face too clever for its years, a grin that had skipped 3 meals and was still a grin. Hey, Mr. Traveler, she said, in a square of 200 people. Do you like big breasts? I will not transcribe what Rafa said. It was not printable. Her name was Lalifa, Rafa's sister, 10. Later, she took my hand down a quieter row of tents. She held it the way a child holds a hand. She spoke the way one does not. Will you marry me? I choked on my own tongue. She let me cough. Then she told me, calmly, the way you tell someone the weather, that her parents were probably dead, that her sister was trying not to know, that Latestwood had nothing left to offer except her, that she smiled a lot because somebody had to, and Rafa could not. All of that, in the voice of a 10-year-old. I sat down on a crate. When I could speak, I told her I could not marry her. I had my own country, my own people. I was sorry, and because no one should be told no, after offering the only thing they had left. But I will help. Within my means, I promise. Her eyes did the shape crying makes before it becomes crying. Then she decided against it. Pinky promise? I held out my smallest finger. She hooked hers through mine. We said cut and let our hands fall. On her pinky was a silver ring, thin, plain, a little tarnished. Silver keeps showing up in this story. The paper knife in my drawer, now this. That ring will outlive a great deal. She smiled. A real one, small and whole at once. Back in the square, Reeve had filled the big pot, more rice than the bag should have held, and this time, no one pretended not to stare. Porridge came up. Lilifa tasted the first ladle and announced, arms up, that it was better than anything she had eaten in 3 weeks. The line formed behind her. I watched from a rise at the back. Rafa came and stood beside me. The Abyss Forest. What is it? Monsters in the deep, she said. Illusions that had killed adventurers for a century, and an old local rumor that the forest belonged to a demon king, a ruler no one had seen. I did not say anything. I had a pretty good guess where the demon king lived. A capital, a gate my guards had just saluted me out of. Latestwood, she added, was a refuge. Everyone the purebloods had driven out. She said proud the way people say it when proud is what you have left. It's a remarkable country, I said. She almost smiled. That was when the communication window opened in my vision. Baran, 2nd Legion, 5 words. A rebellion has occurred, my lord. The porridge line was still moving. Lilifa was still announcing each bowl like a herald. Down the row, an old man was eating hot food for the first time in a week, crying quietly into his sleeve. I stood on the rise with a dead queen's daughter beside me, and my capital burning in a sentence behind my eyes, and I did not move. I did not let my face move. Inside, I was already running. Outside, the pattern was familiar by now. I looked like a man who had meant to stand very still. Baren's voice was only 5 words wide. A rebellion has occurred, my lord. I closed the window before my face could. Lilitha was still announcing each bowl below us like a herald. I found Rifa's eyes and told her the smallest true thing I could. A rescue request from my own people. She nodded the way girls nod when their practice at pretending runs out. Reeve knelt and held her arms out, and the carrying happened faster than my pride could catch up. I swallowed what was left and let her. Ertina bent the forest's voice the other way with a word, and the three of us moved at a speed the illusion had not been built to hold. 5 of Camilla's silent demons folded in behind. I ran numbers while Reeve ran with me. The game had taught me losing the throne meant permanent deletion. In here, it might mean something I had no word for yet. And when I got tired of thinking about betrayal, I named the 3 I would not doubt. Reeve, Baran, Ertina, the beginning 3. If they turned, I deserved what came. The capital's wall climbed up out of the trees. Reeve jumped it, 30 meters of vertical in one coil release, and my stomach stayed somewhere back at the bottom. The throne room met us with swords down, and Baran standing in front of the empty chair, alive, blade a quiet line across his chest, throne untouched. He reported in the voice he uses for weather. Ogres, recently annexed. Red-skinned leader, 5th Legion already in position, 6th Stealth in support. Suppression nearly complete. Of course it was ogres. I had taken them in 3 weeks ago from a cleared tract. The loyalty bar had been at 0, and I had told myself I would patch it later. Later had arrived. I told Baran to guard the throne until I came back. I did not say the part where the game had trained me to reward the cleanup in person. A rebel suppression reward event, +1 morale. It sounded correct in my head. I left on foot, Reeve and Ertina with me. The main street was quiet the way a street is quiet when everyone with good sense is indoors. The bodies began 2 blocks in. The mace had gone through some of them. The axe had gone through the rest. Guardy's Legion does not do delicate work. I kept my mouth closed, my eyes level, and did not throw up in front of my subordinates, and I counted that an achievement. Guardy met us at the center, 2 meters of man, fur mantle, beastbone plate, a grin that did not fit the carnage behind him. He bowed the way he bows, which is barely, and reported the suppression complete. Reeve's tail went flat. Your speech is improper in front of the king, 5th Legion commander. Guardy laughed, said I allowed informal speech so it was fine. Ertina murmured that neither should fight. I walked past them to the body. He was a head taller than Guardy, red-skinned, a hole under his ribs where an axe had gone through. A heavy mace dropped across his wrist, iron rusted dark from a lot of doors that had not been his. I wanted to see the thing I had bought and failed. That is the truth. I approached because kings in the textbooks I did not have approached, because there was a reward event in my muscle memory, because the numbers said he was dead. The narrator, looking back, does not know what I thought I would find. The ogre opened his eyes. 1 heartbeat. He roared, a sound with a name on it. My name, I think, though the throat that made it was beyond language. The mace came off the stone, slow because I was slow. I saw the rust. I saw Guardy's jaw drop a half second behind the sound, and Reeve already moving, and Ertina's lips shaping a word the air would not carry in time. The mace connects. I died. I dreamed I was looking down at a board, a war map in the game's own colors, monsters in the thousands coming across in a tide. My pieces went dark one by one. 8 Legion crests guttered, then 7, then 1. At the center stood a single crystal piece, cut in the shape of a wolf. A hand I could not see lifted a stone and brought it down. The wolf broke. I woke up. My own ceiling, my own bed. A pain at the back of my skull like the one I would not think about. Silver hair at the edge of my pillow. Amber eyes. Ears pinned down. A tail, not moving at all. Hylian-sama. She told it like a field report. The ogre had a unique skill. Strike from the afterlife. 1 counterattack from beyond death. Species specific. Rare. Missed in Guardy's report because 5th Legion had never faced one. Mace to the head. Instant. I had been dead over half a day. I had resurrected because I was king. 5 lives. 4 left. I opened the virtual window without thinking, and there the log was. The clinical little line I had always read with amusement in tutorials. Automatic resurrection engaged. Stat penalty, 24 hours. I stared at it the way you stare at a receipt for something you did not buy. Reeve, come closer. She came closer. I reached up. I touched her ear. The silver fur was soft. The game had never let me feel this, only told me I could. My fingertips moved to her cheek. A pulse, small and quick under the skin. Her throat, warm. A breath going in, a breath going out. The game has never done warmth. I sat down very slowly, the way you sit when the floor of your life has been pulled out from under you, and I understood, before I said it in words, that I was never logging out. Reeve's tail moved, once, a thump against the sheet. She caught it, and it went still, and she apologized for something that was not her fault, the way loyal people apologize when they have failed. A god they should have known was mortal. I told her, quietly, to give Guardy the streets. Ertina, the aftermath. Baran, his usual post. I would need her when the bell rang. She bowed and left. What I did not know until much later, what she told me years after, when I had earned the right to ask, was the hallway. She had walked out composed, taken up position across from my door. And standing there, she had remembered that I had petted her head the day before without thinking about it. It had not happened in 130 years, not since the Dawn period, when she was small and I had still been learning what a king's hand was for. Her tail wagged once against a wall she should have been watching. A magical armor unit politely asked whether something good had happened. She almost killed it. She said that she had taken a small mirror from a pouch and combed her hair with a hand that could break a man's neck. And when my bell finally rang, she took 2 full seconds longer than she should have because she wanted, very badly, to be ready. In the moment, I tested a secret technique called Red Moon's Blessing. 10% of my life force in one pull. The room tilted, and I learned what a king pays for a thing he used to tap an icon for. I called for a meeting, 5 hours, all 8 commanders, and I sat down and wrote a speech. I sat through the famous ones first, the ones I had clapped at in anime, clipped from war movies. None of them fit, none were mine. The key phrase system was gone with the rest of the game. If I borrowed a dead man's words, loyalty would tick up 1%, then start sliding. I had done the math. Shock first, rally second, like a game. I wrote a bad draft, and then one I did not hate. The square held everyone who could reach it. Clairvoyance at the edges, relaying into the valleys. Over 100,000 faces turned up. On a small balcony to the west, Rifa stood pale in a green cloak with Wenry behind her. I had sent for them because honesty is stronger with witnesses. I stepped out onto a path of crystallized light that reached down in a slow arc. A king's traversal, theatrical, real. I told them the truth. We were not where we had been. Logout did not work. The GM did not answer. 1 year of food, no allies in 100 kilometers, 2 elf nations next door, 1 already hurting people. It looked hopeless. I asked slowly if anyone agreed. The square went silent in the way a square goes silent only when 100,000 creatures hold their breath at once. I let it hold. A count of 10 maybe, long enough for the wind to be audible. Then I took a breath. I told them we had been through worse. The first war, the second. 150 years of fights the young ones had only heard about. I told them about Latestwood, a village of half-elves who had shared nothing and had fed us anyway. I told them about Noblewood, who had demanded my 3rd Legion commander's head as tribute. I said no. I said I would not fight this as a king and an army. I would fight it as a single beast, 1 body, 1 breath, every citizen a cell, every legion an organ, every commander a part. I named the beast Archimera. Reeve, 1st Legion, the Eye of Archimera. She knelt where she was. 1. Baran, 2nd Legion, the Claw. 2. Ertina, 3rd Legion, the Mane. 3. Ceres, 4th Legion, the Tongue. 4. Guardi, 5th Legion, the Arm. 5. Louder than necessary. He had been bracing for worse. Camilla, 6th Legion, the Ear. A half-second pause. Her 6 came out perfect, purring, on rhythm. Her eyes did not. Robin, 7th Legion, the Leg. 7. A whoop. Small engineer, huge voice. No guard, 8th Legion, the Wing. 8. The square did not cheer yet. They were waiting. A beast has parts. Parts bleed. The beast lives. Then the square cheered. I cannot describe that sound. 100,000 throats shaped into one animal. Up on the west balcony, Rifa lifted one hand to her mouth and the other to Wenry's sleeve. And Wenry, who had entered this city suspicious and ready to bolt, was gripping the railing like a woman who had just watched a god pick up a sword. Further back, an attendant was quietly escorting Wenry's adjutant away with a spare cloak. Castle staff had handled worse in 150 years of parades, and handled this without a ripple. Inside, my knees were shaking. Outside, the pattern, by now familiar. I looked like a man who had done this 150 times already. Later, on the way out of the chamber, I passed Camilla. Her smile was the one she wore in public. Her eyes were the ones she wore when she thought no one was looking. Ear was a short word, shorter than the others. She had counted. I pretended not to notice. The narrator will tell you I did notice, and the not saying of it was a seed I would pay for later. I had died once. I had come back. I had named my kingdom a beast and bound 8 commanders to it in front of every soul I owned. That was the day the king I had been pretending to be, and the man who could not log out, finally lived in the same body. War was next. I could hear it coming. Tonight, I slept with one hand flat on the silver trim of my blanket, thinking about a ring on a 10-year-old's pinky a day's run away, about a forest whose demon king was me, and about 4 lives on a counter that had once read 5. For the first time, I slept in this world as someone who belonged in it. The Fusion Beast rally was still echoing off the Capitol Stone when I left the balcony. Rifa had watched the whole thing from the West Wing in a green cloak, Wenry beside her. Inside, I was shaking under a dark coat. Latestwood needed to be safe before Noblewood moved. That meant going back, disguised. Same 3-woman party, plus 1. Camilla had petitioned for the field trip. 6th Legion never sleeps. Her cover role was my doting companion, and she took it seductively and at maximum range. Clung to my arm the whole forest walk, humming against my shoulder. Reeve's tail did not move. That was how I knew Reeve was furious. Ertina pretended not to notice. In the practiced way, that meant she noticed entirely. Half a day out, with Latestwood's tree line under our feet, Reeve lifted her chin. Blood. I opened the map window. The friendly white dots over the village had thinned. We ran. At the gate, Wenry came out of the tree line with an arrow already drawn. She fired first and asked questions with the second. Reeve caught both in her palm, a thing Reeve does on days that are already bad. Wenry shouted, and I paraphrase because her voice was cracking, that we were Noblewood agents, that the timing was too clean. Wenry, I'm Hellion, misunderstanding. She knocked a third. Rafa came through the gate at a run. Her wrist bracelet lit pale green, and she told Wenry, in a voice I had not heard her use, that the queen of this country had given an order. Wenry's bow came down the way a good soldier lowers a weapon and still hates it. Rafa looked at me. Her face was composed the way a face is composed when the person behind it has already cried everything out. Noblewood's hunter captain led the assault. Half our defenders are dead. Lilitha is gone. Under my ribs, a silver ring on a 10-year-old's pinky, tarnished quietly. Inside was worse. Half the tents were char. The infirmary, thick with burnt cloth and infection. Rafa tried a polite phrase about what healing they could afford. I cut her off. Ertina, everyone. Ertina knelt in the doorway. Heavenly prayer of mercy. No catalyst, no gesture. Soft gold rain inside the tent walls, and people who had been dying for a day stopped dying in one breath. A dwarf nurse dropped her bandages. Wenry made a sound no warrior wants to make in public. It's real, Rafa whispered. You had limits, I said. We have fewer. Outside, Rafa called the village. They came. Noblewood's demand, she said, was simple and not simple. Hand over the travelers with a high elf by sunset tomorrow. In exchange, the 40 captured Latestwood citizens returned. A sacred tree oath bound Noblewood on their side, broken at the cost of every elf in existence turning on them. Wenry said what a soldier says, a trap, bait. Rafa said what a queen says. If they wanted us dead, she, a glance at Reeve, would have killed me in the forest. Instead, she stopped at one word. Then she knelt. I offer myself as the price. My stomach moved before she finished. She told me in the flat voice of a ledger, a descendant of Noblewood's queen. A half-elf went for 500 gold. She was worth 10 times that. Royal blood, educated. She would fund a rescue and then some. Wenry dropped next, offered herself in Rafa's place. The porridge line grandmother went down after, a blacksmith, a dozen more. The square folded into kneeling like cloth pulling toward a stone. Behind my ribs, the narrator said the silver ring, said the pinky, said the promise. 3 clean options: refuse, accept, cry, and do neither. I picked a fourth. I became the king out loud. 3 points first. I counted them on a hand that did not shake. 1. The oath is one-sided. Noblewood keeps it, or all elves turn on them. Yes. 2. Noblewood wants the high elf. If we trade, they have no reason to honor anything. Yes. 3. What does Alchimaira gain? The square said nothing. Then I will tell you what Alchimaira gains. A word. I pulled my hood back. My full name is Helion Edda Ursinuk. I am the king of Alchimaira, the country whose rally you just saw from my west balcony. What I am accepting now is not a traveler's contract. It is a king's declaration of protection, and I will not take you as payment. The square went the exact silence it had gone at my own balcony. Then, Rafa said, Latestwood joins Alchimaira, effective immediately. I recover your people and your sister. You remain queen. Compensation after the dead are counted. Wenry put her forehead to the dirt. We walked to Noblewood's capital at a pace that looked like negotiation from a distance. Up close, it looked like a trap. The city was half black, buildings guttering, civilians missing from streets where civilians should have been. Sarowin met us at the south gate with 20 hunters at his back. Tall, pale hair tied back to show the ears. Arrogant. He said with a smile that a guardian had been unsealed and needed feeding. He gestured. Behind him, in a plaza of torn paving, stood the fairy dragon. It was a child. That was the first thing. 6 butterfly-veined wings, half-eaten through. Skeleton under translucent skin. A rib cage like a lantern. Eyes too large, too wet, too young. Cattle for the dragons, Sarowin said, and I paraphrase because the narrator will not perform his rhetoric. He said half-elves were defiled impurities. He said feeding the dragon was a kindness. He said we should feel honored. Rafa held still. Sarowin raised something in his other hand, a forearm. small, severed at the elbow, a silver ring on the pinky. The ring was tarnished the way I had last seen it tarnished, in Latestwood, hooked through my own finger with the word cut in the air between us. Noise went away. The narrator does not remember what my face did. It remembers what my mouth said. These are not people. They are beasts. I raised one hand. Ceres' barrier went up around the entire capital. 4th Legion, preset on Camilla's intelligence. An invisible dome. No elf going home. No guard when airborne. 8th Legion, Twilight Dragon form. Red as old wine against dusk. The horde above him came through the cloud cover scale by scale, and Sarowyn's mouth went from smile to open. 8th Legion, commence. The sky opened. Short version. A long one would be a war crime on the audience. Nogard took the fairy dragon out of the air in one pass. A focused red beam, a cry, a fall. The child dragon hit the plaza and did not move. Somewhere under the world, a mother would remember this. Not today. Priest Chief ran north. Ceres was there with a grimoire under her arm. Guardy stepped out of the smoke and asked for the kill. Ceres said yes. The axe did what axes do. The priest had begged mercy on elf kinship. Ceres, whose skin had stopped being dark elf long ago, had none. Klaus, Noblewood soldier chief, heavy plate, enchanted short swords, met a full-armored 2nd Legion recruit near the temple. He fought well. 2 minutes of honest swordplay. Then, the recruit knocked his helmet off. A goblin, nameless. Standard issue armor. First battle, 3rd kill. He told Klaus, and I paraphrase, because the goblin's broken grammar belongs to him, that nameless recruits earn a name at 5 kills, that Klaus was number 3, that he needed 2 more before his captain gave him 1. Klaus's face did the thing a face does when a story ends. He did not survive. I hold no opinion. The narrator refuses to. A nameless creature earning identity through clean duels. Inside a war the elves started. Dignified. Horrifying. Both. Sarowyn tried to reach me on mind speech, begged terms, offered secrets. The sealed mother under the mountain, feeding schedules, names. I turned the feed off. I flew the Twilight Dragon low over the prison. Nogard's voice in my head warned me about the cost. I told him to dive. We crushed the gate. The cells held Latestwood's 40, filthy, starved, mostly alive. Protect them. Don't lose another. Then, high over the square, I said the words. Imperial Dragon's Judgment. A Twilight Dragon's one-shot. Red sigil rings unfurled in the sky. 1 for every Noblewood soldier still breathing. I paid the casting cost. Nogard was the channel. My life force meter, the private window only I could see, dropped hard. The rings closed. Noblewood, as a standing army, ended in one breath. Sarowyn's mind voice went out mid-sentence. I swallowed the first of 4 potions without tasting it. Catharsis. The audience is allowed to cheer. The narrator is not. We took the throne room at dusk. I did not want it. I sat on it anyway. A victory that will not sit on the chair it won becomes a rumor. Half-elves filed in, thin and gray, carrying each other. Ryfa at the front with her head up and her mouth small. Dominion over 90%. Enemy annihilated. Throne captured. Alchimaira's protection is formal on Latestwood's register. Ryfa knelt. Do not kneel. I am breaking the contract on purpose. The room held its breath. You sold yourself for the safe return of your people. Your sister was not returned. The contract is void. I refuse payment. Stand up. Then I have nothing? You have a country. I demand you remain queen of Latestwood. Her eyes did a thing I could not let myself look at long. I swear on my sister Lalifa's name that I will remain. The half-elves cheered. Small, ragged, real. Wenry wept behind her and did not bother to hide it. Ertina, she was already beside me. My king. Heavenly prayer of mercy. Every injured citizen. All of them. She hesitated a half-beat. My king. The king tier amplification. I know what it costs. The narrator will tell you what it costs. Half the meter per cast. 4 casts to reach everyone. The math was obvious. The math was impossible. Potion 1. The meter crawled a quarter back. First cast. Gold rain inside the throne room, then wider. My amplification pushed it through Ceres' old barrier like a net. 100 wounded stopped being wounded. A girl's severed fingers were there again. An old man's burned face was not burned. Potion 2. Second cast. I was on my feet and had not remembered standing. Third. Sweat through a coat clean at dawn. Reeve's hand at my elbow without touching. Her tail absolutely still. Fourth. Gold rain took the last ones. An archer with 2 broken legs walked out of a tent the narrator could see through the window. I said the post-war terms in one breath. Latestwood under Alchimaira's protection. Mutual aid. Open trade. Rafa's seat secured. Then, the line I had rehearsed on the South Road. You are our people now. No one is coming for you again. They did not cheer this time. They bowed. It was better. I stood to leave. The floor did not disagree at first. Then, the meter slid past the line I had been pretending not to watch. The room tilted. My knees unlocked. Reeve caught me before I reached the stone. She had been ready the entire last cast, her forearm under my ribs, her tail, once, against the back of my calf, which she would deny later. Her voice did not break, though in retrospect it wanted to. My king. The sentence I tried did not leave my mouth. The last thing I saw was silver hair, amber eyes, and a half-elf queen reaching a hand out that would not reach in time. Lilitha was still dead. I had fought a war for a promise, and she was still dead. 4 lives on the counter, a meter that could only go so low before a king did not wake up. Tonight, I had put that number somewhere I would not say out loud. The dark came down like a curtain that had been waiting to close. I woke in my own bed because Reeve had decided I would. A small green vial sat on the nightstand, empty, next to a note in her careful straight handwriting. World Tree Holy Water, one of 3 the kingdom owned. She had used it on me without permission and signed the note with the phrase loyal people use when they are asking for a punishment they already know will not come. I accept all consequences. Underneath, in a second hand, a short line. She was running administration until I was fit to run it. I folded the note twice and did not throw it away. The castle was quieter than the inside of my chest. I could not be in it. I pulled the gray robe out of the wardrobe I had never used. Player equipment, concealment magic, adjustable. You could dial it to unrecognizable or to recognizable by one specific face, and nobody except the wearer would know which. I tuned it to the first setting, pulled the hood up, and walked out the small side door that only a king's silhouette could open. The city was drunk. Monsters were singing in the streets, with one arm around each other's shoulders. Ogres throwing mock punches that would have killed anyone who was not an ogre. A dwarf crying into a tankard taller than himself. Children chasing victory confetti. The whole capital was celebrating what I had bought and did not feel I had earned. I walked through it hooded and invisible, and I felt like a fraud wearing his own clothes. The tavern I ended up at was at the outskirts. A low doorway, wooden stools, no menu card. I ordered an ale because I was underage in a country where I had been the law for 150 years. Gubtaro, the old goblin behind the counter, scarred green hands, bartender's apron, poured it without asking my age. He called every customer, sir. I was halfway through the first ale, staring into foam, when I realized the beams over the bar were ones I had drawn myself. 150 years ago, in a hut on a bare plain, Tavern of the Beginning, my starter building, my first save point. I had walked, by accident, into my own origin. Is the seat free? A half-elf girl, hood up, slid onto the stool beside me. I choked on the ale. She startled. Ah, are you all right? I'm sorry, I knew the voice before I knew what to do with it. Under the hood, blonde hair, green eyes, a tired composure held together by will. Rafa, also incognito. She did not recognize me, not through the robe at that setting. We talked about the menu first, because that is what 2 strangers do when neither can say the real thing. She ordered tea. I ordered a second ale. I do not remember which one opened the subject of the king of Alchimera, but by the 3rd drink, I was savaging him. A coward in a king's cloak. A student who had learned his lines by watching old movies. A boy who could not even look at a severed arm without his knees unlocking. The word hypocrite came up. I meant all of it. Rafa listened for a long time. Then she set her cup down. That is not true. She said it quietly, without turning her head. A king's job is to use the talents of the people who serve him. That is all. He does not have to be the best at anything. He has to see clearly, and he has to take the weight. She looked at her tea. When he came to my village, he did not come to save me. He came because he had promised a child a pinky promise, and he could not stand to break it. I have met men who broke bigger promises for smaller reasons. He is not one of them. I had nothing in my throat. Behind me, 2 drunkards were shoving each other. One staggered. A hand caught my hood for balance and yanked. Cold air across the back of my neck. The bar, which had been loud, went quiet the way a bar goes quiet when it is not breathing anymore. Gubtaro had his bottle stopped in the middle of a pour. Rafa's cup was hovering. My black hair, my black eyes. In the Tavern of the Beginning, of all the bars in the world. Rafa's mouth moved once and made no sound. I was crying, I realized, without knowing. The way Rafa had said in her sentence about crying, without tears. My face was wet and my hands had not moved. And in the middle of the shame of it, something dim in the back of my head woke up. A skill card I had not looked at in weeks. Subordinate Resurrection, 24-hour window, 2 revives per name, citizens or vassals. Vassals. Latestwood was a vassal state of Alchimaira as of 3 days ago. I had forgotten. Not hidden, forgotten. because Lilitha had never been a subordinate on a sheet. She had been a 10-year-old with a silver ring and a pinky promise. I turned on the stool. My voice was not steady. Rifa, her full name, Lilitha's full name, all of it. She stared. Please, Lilitha. Lilitha Rum Latestwood. Rum, not Rim. The second daughter suffix. That was the piece I had missed. I opened the window, only I could see. I found the line that was still there, grayed out for hours, still inside the 24. I pressed it. A small light formed in the middle of the tavern floor. It did not roar or crackle. It just gathered, warm and steady, the way a window fills when the sun comes up behind it. The light took shape. Silver white hair, a small cream and green dress, 2 bare ankles, not yet sure of the floor. Lilitha opened her eyes and looked around a room she had never been in. Where? Rafa was already moving. Her teacup hit the bar and did not break, and she was on her knees on the old floorboards with both hands on her sister's face. She did not say Lilitha's name. She said nothing. She pressed her forehead into Lilitha's hair, and her shoulders came apart quietly, the way a dam fails. Not loud, only complete. Lilitha's small hand came up and patted her sister's back, still looking around, still asking where. I could not cry. It was not my cry to have. I sat on the stool with the hood back and the ale going flat and watched them. The silver ring was on Lilitha's right pinky, still there. Tarnished the same tarnish. A ring that had outlived its wearer and come home with her. A small window opened at the edge of my vision. Alchimaira post-war casualty report, 0. I closed it. Days later, my desk was trying to kill me. War merit evaluations, rebuild budgets. A goblin recruit standing very straight waiting for a name. The one who had fought Klaus, 3 kills toward 5. I read his file, touched his commander's seal, and wrote Gabujiro on the line. He bowed so hard the helmet clanked. First grandchild of Gobtaro's line, his commander murmured. The name had been waiting for him. I had not slept properly in 3 days. I was about to when the south window went orange. An explosion, then a second one, then a building I had funded Gardy to rebuild, going down for the second time in a week. Gardy and no guard, in the street, insults in progress. I walked to the door of the bedroom with my coat half on, and the cold came up through my ribs, the way it had come up at the south gate of Noblewood. No performance, only exhaustion with an edge on it. Reeve was at my elbow before I asked. Crimson Moon's protection, I said. On you, both of them. Don't kill them. No transformations for 3 hours. My king, do it. Red Moon's protection is a king's amplification. It lifts her stats and drains my life force the way a straw drains a glass. I paid for their discipline in my own meter. They would understand without the word being said. I walked back to bed as Reeve's first hit reached Gardy behind me. The sound was percussive. Nogard's voice rose in a register Nogard does not usually use. I slept with my teeth together. Lilitha came for the picnic 4 days after that. She arrived as Latestwood's official messenger in a tiny formal coat and the full protocol phrasing until the door shut behind Reeve and the coat came off. Big brother. She poked my arm to make sure I was real. We sat in the courtyard with a blanket and 3 sandwiches and tested the abilities I had not touched since the war. Information Share pulled Rifa's 3 measurements onto the card, the way a prank tells on its author. Lilitha cackled. I choked on water. Reeve 100 meters away turned her head. Compressed key. A finger snap from me raised Lilitha's arm into the air. She made it a dance move. Communication from across the yard. She tried to shout her sister's underwear color into my ear before I cut the line. Then the transfer gate. She stepped through before I finished the warning. Gone. 10 seconds. Back, holding a small folded cloth with a triumphant grin. Proof, she announced. Big sisters. I laughed. Not a kingly laugh. Not a performance. A real laugh. The kind that moves under the ribs. The first one since the podium. She beamed. Then she pretended she had not seen. A week later, I pulled the gray robe back on and walked to the Tavern of the Beginning alone. The stool on the corner had a little brass plate on it, now that Gobtaro pretended he had not installed. I sat on it. He set an ale down, without asking. Rafa came in 20 minutes later, hooded. I dialed the robe to the second setting, recognizable only to her. Her eyes, through the steam of the tea, Gobtaro placed between us, caught on me, and softened. A pseudonym, she said, if we are going to do this properly. Reina, I said, that will work. And you? I thought of an old god with a long coat and 1 eye. Grim, Grimnir, short for friends. She smiled, small, tired, real. We talked for an hour as Rena and Grim. She told me about Latestwood's reconstruction and the small council Wenry was trying to assemble and the mother who had never come home. I told her about a kingdom I would not name and a throne I had not chosen and the commanders I could not read. She mentioned her nation's council, a vote, a veto layer, a judge who could overrule her if he had to. She asked, mid-sip, how Alchimaira did it. I opened my mouth to answer and did not have one. There was no council. There was no veto. There was no judge. There was me. I was the law. My stomach dropped quietly in the way that does not show on the face. Dictatorship. The word sat between us on the bar, and she did not know it was there. I drained the ale. I thanked her. I walked out with a smile that held until the door closed. Outside, the wind went over my hood, and I nearly walked into a carriage. A merchant's crest. A driver going too fast for the street. A hand gripped my collar and yanked me back. A yukai, hatchet across his back, cursing the driver with creativity. He asked if I was all right, spat at the road, and jogged on to whatever his wife was waiting to beat him for. I stood in the street with my heart in my mouth. A merchant's crest. I had been a king for 6 days. I had been, in the real sense of the word, nothing for 20 years before that. What I needed was not more paperwork. It was a road and a pack, and a name that was not Helion on it. I would go out as a merchant, learn what a normal ruler looked like from outside, come back with the shape of a country that was not just my signature. I walked home with the plan already drawing itself in my head. Inside, the kingdom was quiet. Outside, familiar pattern. I looked like a man who had only gone for a walk. The merchant plan from the Tavern night was half real by the time I said it aloud. 3 commanders, Reeve, Baran, Camilla. Baran reported a capital that had stopped flinching. Camilla reported Noblewood operations on schedule. Reeve reported a year of grain in the vaults. I told them I was going out. A border city, merchant cover, transfer gate installed through cultural dominance, not an army. Reeve's ear moved before her face did. Your Majesty poses unacceptable risks. A king has to be seen. The gate goes in when the ground agrees. It only agrees when I'm standing on it. I did not mention the Reina half, the dictator realization half. I would lie to my commanders and pay for it in private. Pattern, team, Reeve, Guardy, Celeste. Ertina had asked for Celeste privately. 4th Legion, elf. She had convinced herself after Noblewood that I hated elves now. Ertina wanted her out of the castle to unbend that. Told Celeste she had been chosen for scouting. Her eyes went wet. She saluted too crisply. Left. Outer gate at dawn. Merchant gear. A wagon that rattled on purpose. No emblems. Reeve stood beside the driver's box in complete human form. I have to tell you what that costs. 2 ranks stripped. No ears. No tail. A human border city would riot at wolf ears. She accepted the cost the way loyal people accept costs, without naming it. I reached up once, briefly, and touched the place her ear used to sit. Short silver, warm scalp. She did not move. Then let's go. Reeve, Celeste, Guardy. First voluntary journey. 2 days out. The wasteland began. Stone the color of old bread. Guardy sensed it first. Boss. Something in the hollow ahead. Celeste went up on a thin wind barrier. Her voice came back small. A girl. Teenager. Alone. 24 men in pursuit. My stomach turned over, then flat. Reeve. High ground. Celeste. Prep the light bow. Reeve's arm went around my ribs, and we were on a cliff edge before I finished thinking. Celeste settled onto one knee, a bow of pale light already in her hand. Below, across flat stone, the girl was running. Pale cream dress, torn collar, black hair down her back. I had given an order days ago about avoiding killing on this trip. I watched that order walk out of my mouth and die. The leader got to her first, grabbed, pushed. His other hand went to the collar of her dress and pulled, and the cloth gave. Celeste, shoot, save her. Her bow flashed. The leader's head came apart. Short sentences. That is what I remember. The noise was small. I opened a communication window, compressed key, pointed the line at the girl. 1 sentence. Calm. Run toward the sun. She ran. Reeve, go! Reeve dropped off the cliff in 1 silver line. 23 men. No ears, no tail. 2 ranks down. She did not need them. Under a minute. I turned my back on Celeste and hit myself across the face. Hard enough to leave a mark. Took a small potion from an inner pocket. Unscrewed the silver cap. Rubbed a drop into the skin until the mark stopped being a mark. Closed my eyes 2 breaths. Said a short flat thing in my head for the dead. Not absolution. A narrow acknowledgement that 24 men had ended on my order, and the order was still correct, and the correct thing still weighed this much. Silver, again, the cap of the potion. The narrator wants you to see it. When I turned back, Celeste was pretending to inspect her bowstring. Neither of them had seen the slap. Both of them knew. Loyal people see through a wall when they love you. Celeste, complete human form. Now, she bowed. We descended. The girl was on flat stone, shaking. I knelt at a respectful distance and pulled my hood down enough that my eyes were visible. You are safe. I apologize for shouting. My name is Helion. Black hair, black eyes. She looked up at me the way a drowning person looks at a shore. The narrator owes you this. For 1 heartbeat, my chest did something I had forgotten it could do. Black hair, black eyes, rare, a player. Maybe I was not alone. Are you a player? A player? Tactics Chronicle. Did you play it? Blank fear. Nothing else. What is a player? Hope died the way hope dies. Quiet. Private. I closed it down and kept my voice steady. Nothing. Forget I asked. I took off my outer coat and draped it around her shoulders. My companions are Reeve, Celeste, Guardy. We will escort you home. I am. Cheyenne, thank you. I stood and turned toward Reeve to arrange clothes and transport. Behind my back, at the edge of her voice, small as a folded piece of paper, she whispered a word I did not hear. The narrator tells you now because I learned it later. She whispered the word her family had kept for the black-haired stranger in the legend they still told their daughters. Arahito-sama. I did not hear her. The audience did. That is how the story works. Back at the wagon, Celeste gave her spare clothes and a cup of Reeve's calming tea. Cheyenne Gardner, daughter of Gren Gardner, border count of Shields, the Saint Sword Baron, pilgrimage, beasts, dead guards. One escort had shoved her into a gully and told her to run. She had run for 2 days. Guardy whistled. Boss, it's in sight. 40 meters of pale wall stood on the horizon, towers at each angle, a portcullis of old iron, shields, humanity's shield. At the gate, a soldier saw Cheyenne's profile in the wagon, and the spear came up the way spears come up when a guard remembers his manners. No inspection. A runner moved toward the mansion district before our wheels made 3 lengths past the gatehouse. The commercial district was alive. Dwarves arguing prices, a beastkin boy negotiating a delivery, an elf woman trading cloth, a border city that had learned, by blood, that keeping the gate closed was dying. Then the sky dropped something. A figure in a long coat came off the top of a 4-story balcony in a flat arc, aiming at our wagon. Fast, no weapon drawn. Reeve's arm went hard across my chest. Guardy did not think. He met the descending body with a short, brutal hook across the temple. Not a kill blow, because Guardy knows the difference, but close. The body hit the street hard, bounced once, came to rest on a shoulder that should have been shattered and wasn't. The man laughed, rolled to his feet, black hair, a chest like a wine barrel, a grin that did not fit the street he had just hit. Excellent reflex, friend. My apologies. I saw my daughter's carriage and could not wait for the stairs. I will paraphrase the rest. Warm, theatrical, delighted with itself. He praised Guardy's strike for being, in his word, honest. He bowed to his daughter, not to me. Cheyenne put her face in her hands. Father, Sir Merchant, I owe you my daughter's life. Gren Gardner, that is my house. He pointed at the balcony. Please, come home with me. I lifted one finger. My 3 stood down in the same breath. Helion, Cheyenne's father, let's go. The guest room was honest brass and dark wood. Gren sat across from me without ceremony, apologized properly for the flying entrance, praised my companion's discipline. He slid a cloth bundle across the table. A reward. For Shion, new gold. Please. I refused. He insisted. I refused again. He insisted a 3rd time and laughed about a man who did not know how to lose a negotiation, and I accepted the way a merchant accepts. Cheyenne came in a proper dress, eyes still a little red from a cry she had taken somewhere out of sight. She bowed to me, then turned and slapped her father's upper arm once in daughterly protest about the balcony dive, and Gren roared with laughter. Stay with us. My house is yours. I thank you. We decline. We are not fluent in noble etiquette. Under your roof, we would embarrass you by accident before the 3rd meal. We will take a good inn and meet you in the city where we can walk in and out freely. Gren studied me a long beat, then nodded, as if a man who had jumped off a balcony in front of strangers could read self-containment in another man easily enough. He wrote 2 short letters in a surprisingly neat hand. 1. Introduction to an inn in the North Maze Quarter on his seal alone. 1. A special city permit for free movement through the district gates. He pressed them into my hand. Come see me whenever it suits you. I am a loud man, but I am not a stupid one, Sir Merchant. His eyes stayed on mine a half-second longer than a stranger's should. Welcome to Shields. We walked out with letters and gold. 2 weeks and a world ago, a girl on a cliff had run toward the sun. I had pulled my hood back over my black hair and told her she was safe. The narrator told you that opening scene with one lens. Tonight, you have the other. A king in borrowed leathers, a bow at a cliff, a slap across his own face with no one watching, a potion with a silver cap, a prayer for 24 men he had never met. The contract is closed. The hook is paid. Cheyenne Gardner whispered a word at my back I did not hear for a long time. She called me Arahito-sama. Someone in her family's line had told her the story of a black-haired stranger who came when he was needed. She thought she had just met him. I thought I had just met a girl with the same hair color and no idea what a player was. Both of us were right. Inside, my chest was very quiet. Outside, familiar pattern. I looked like a merchant walking to an inn with his people. The North Maze Inn took Gren's letter without a question. 3 keys for 4 people. Reeve did not comment. In the room, Celeste drew a following type soundproof barrier before I asked. Loyal people build habits around the thing they love. Objectives, Transfer gate, base, military assessment. Halfway through, Gardy asked, casually, which of the local humans was probably a regeneration type and which was clairvoyant. In his head, humans were all like me. Gardy, humans are not like me. My kit is mine. They live 70 years and die. Celeste's mouth made a small, soft O. They had been built by a king who was human and had assumed the species. I sent a daily report to Ertina, capital, steady. Bathhouse. Reeve was on her feet. I will accompany. Reeve, gardener seal. Wait outside the changing room, not further. Her head dipped, disappointment in her face. I pretended not to see it. For 6 minutes, I was not a king. The narrator owes you this. Somewhere under shields, in those same 6 minutes, a long thing asleep on a labyrinth's 30th floor opened one eye. You hear it because I did not. Breakfast was a cultural offense. 4 kinds of vinegar, salted bread, tin tea. Gardy ate 5 servings for 1 silver and laughed about the First Great War 120 years ago, a month on what a man could chew. Reeve asked him not to have heavy conversations before noon. At the Fountain Square, I split the team. Reeve, Dungeon District, assessment. Yes. Gardy, Adventurer Guild. Listen. Boss. Celeste, with me. Commerce. The narrator tells you now because I did not tell her. Reeve's detection would read the dungeon faster. Celeste would read a merchant's lie. Logistics. Celeste read it as trusted. Reeve read it as replaced. 1 reading was going to cost me. The shop owner took my 3 stones and undervalued the green one by 1/3, with the small smile of a man running old arithmetic. The cloth is fire resistant. Celeste opened her right hand, and a column of fire stood without a word. No incantation. She passed it across the cloth once. The cloth did not take. I let my eyes rest, casually, on the decorated sword on his shelf. 4 magic stones in a hilt for show. The kind of display a stonesman notices in the first minute. I did not mention it. I just let the look land. The stones. Reappraise. He did. I slid my tactical window open against my thigh. The thin dominance bar climbed a hair. Economic influence counts. On the way back, I bought 10 bundles of herbs Celeste had glanced at 2 seconds too long. For your research. She did not thank me out loud. Elves of her rank do not. Her fingers closed around the bundle the way you close a hand around something rare. I will tell you what happened in the dungeon district, the way Reeve told it to me years later. One quiet night, when I had earned the right to ask. She walked the perimeter. Highest threat, mid-C rank, negligible. Her mind kept drifting. She had been planned for the escort. She had been replaced. She was not built, she told me, to name what she was feeling about it. A man stepped out of a doorway in a back alley. Human. Small sword. A flirt. She turned her face to him. You are human, he agreed. Then, from a human's eye, am I more beautiful than the elves? The narrator will tell you that mattered. He laughed. He said yes. Obviously, yes, the elves would not walk in her shadow. Reeve. No ears. No tail. 2 ranks stripped. Leaked about 1/4% of what she actually was. The man went gray. His body had forgotten how to fall. It took her 2 breaths to pull the leak back. I apologize. You may go. But retract any implication that the king's judgment was ever in question. He retracted it 3 times without being asked twice and left relearning his legs. She reported to me with her composure restored. I praised the work. I noticed her mood was subdued, the way good weather notices a pressure change. I did not ask. I was tired. She was composed. The alley was never a thing she would volunteer. I learned it years later with a small, sharp laugh that was not quite a laugh. The scene is funny. The scene is also sad. Both are true. Afternoon. The labyrinth overflowed. The dungeon district bell went up 3 tones and did not stop. Gardy's head came up. Boss, breach bell, out on the street. Black demon dogs. Wet snapping barks. A mother shoving a child into a door. 2 adventurers by the fountain, fighting back-to-back in vacation clothes. A bald brawler with a dagger. A woman with a short spear. Hoods up. Reeve, east flank. Yes. Gardy, street mouth. Axe wide. Boss, Celeste, lightning. Young master. Reeve went east in a silver line. A dog about to reach a child was no longer a dog. Gardy cleared the street mouth. Lightning came out of the air above Celeste's hand in tight arcs. I walked up next to the brawler. Commander of this group. Yeah, Biggle. I opened my tactical window under my sleeve. Combat map. District live. Red dots. Green. Yellow. Morayu tool shop. 5 civilians. 2 dogs at the door. Send 2. Biggle relayed through something they called heart talk. Tannery Alley. 9 civilians. No station. Move the red-headed pair. Central Fountain. Feral pack from the south drain. Form a line. 3 minutes. After the 6th correct call, he stopped questioning and just relayed. Gren Gardener came through the south gate on foot because he had outrun his own horse. Silver-hilted sword already glowing gold. He cut 2 dogs in 1 sweep and did not slow down. He saw me. He saw my window. He saw Biggle nodding at what I said. Lord Hellion, you have the map. Continue. 3 hours. hours, fewer than 30 dead. For an outbreak, a miracle. Beagle walked up bleeding from one arm he had not noticed. Just Beagle. You saved my city, Sir Merchant. Hellion. Gren clapped my shoulder, lightly. 2 days. My mansion. He walked off to count his dead. 2 days. A labyrinth does not overflow by accident. Throat. Lung. 30th floor altar. When the altar is not tuned, the lung stops breathing and the dogs come up. The narrator will tell you that mattered. On the 3rd morning, Gren's runner arrived with a folded letter. I read it. I put on the cloak. I went. Inside, my chest was quiet. Outside, familiar pattern. A merchant walking to a count's mansion with 2 days of city bells still in his ears. Gren's study smelled of wood polish and old paper. He did not apologize. He asked. A tuning ritual, 30th floor. His daughter Cheyenne as ritualist, because the gardener line carried the ceremony. Knights on the descent, my party as vanguard. I would have abandoned the district without you, he said. I am saying that out loud, because it is true. I named the reward. He did not flinch. We shook hands like men who had already shaken hands once. 3 days later, we were on the 10th floor. Floors 10, 15, 20, 25. Brute forced. Celeste put walls through stone pillars. Gardy put a door through itself. The dungeon was a puzzle we refused to play. On the 30th, the ritual chamber opened like a lung. Cheyenne stepped into the center with a crystal dagger and began a dance. Small feet, measured turns. The dagger tracing a figure in the air the way a doctor traces a pulse. The mana that had been stuttering all week. Smoothed, stabilized, held. Reeve, in full form down here. No civilian eyes, ears up, silver tail low. Watched the girl with something I did not recognize on her face. Cheyenne finished, bowed, smiled at me. Coming down the pedestal, she missed a step. I caught her under the arm. Reflex. Her sleeve tore on the dagger's edge. A shallow line on her forearm. My thumb, already cut from a bracer buckle an hour earlier, pressed across it. 2 drops of blood, mixed. The chamber answered. A teleport rune I had not seen lit under my boots. Reeve's arm was around my chest before the light finished, and the light took us both. Vast, starless. Stone pillars farther apart than a city block, reaching up into nothing. No ceiling, no walls. A pedestal in the middle, weathered stone, a cloudy crystal the size of a skull. Chained to the pedestal on 4 iron lines. A knight in blue armor, sword, shield, slit visor with a single red light inside it. The chains snapped one at a time. 4 small sounds. My tactical window went dark. Communication, nothing. Map, nothing. Reeve stepped between me and it, and her voice went flat. Mythic SS. Helion Sama, please run. The tier name landed like a dropped coin in a quiet room. I ran the numbers. The space had no walls. There was nowhere to run. I had spent a life stacking small misfortunes into a life. Every plan of mine had ended somewhere it was not supposed to. Every one. Then I put the mask on. Posture shifted first. Shoulders squared. Spine straightened. The tired student inside me stepped back 1 pace, and the king of 10,000 demons stepped forward into the place he had left. My voice dropped. Red Moon's protection. Activate. The technique pulled a thin red line out of my chest. Reeve's body took it. The counter in my window, the one the narrator has told you is always ticking, ticked. She turned her head to me. Silver hair, amber eyes, ears forward. There is no running, Reeve. Whatever that is. If it is in our way, we take it down. I trust your presence. Her breath stopped. I let her have the ceremony. She had waited a century for it. In the name of the king of 10,000 demons, Helion Edda Elsinuk, I command the Chimera's eye, Reeve Frecules, destroy it. For 130 years, she had wanted to be named, trusted, witnessed in that order. She was named, she was trusted, she was witnessed. By your will, my king. Moonwolf's roar, silver sound that shook the pillars. She charged. They were equal at first, sword and shield against fist. Her fists moved faster than the eye could hold. His counters arrived on the same beat, equal. She opened her own tactical windows mid-motion and read him like a page. Activated Red Moon's protection, layered with Vermilion Moon's stigma. 4 of 8 marks. Past her natural limits. She broke his shield. She broke his sword. She drove her fists through the center of the breastplate. Silence. The knight's body stood back up, intact, attacked from behind. She dodged. Breath sharpened. God's leather restraint. Black bands. 1 second bind. God's iron restraint. 3 seconds. 6 moonlight swords resolved in the air around her in a half circle. Moonlight cannon at point blank. The upper half of the blue knight went to vapor. The body stood back up, intact. Reeve spoke to herself. Then I will keep killing until you die. 7 times she killed him. 7 times he stood. I was on one knee at the edge of the arena, eyes on my window, watching her bleed for me. Bones broke silently in her forearm. On the 4th revival, she did not stop. The narrator will tell you what he was tracking. The knight never left the pedestal, not on any exchange, not once. The crystal was the anchor. I stood up, vision grayed. I drank my second to last life potion, and the gray pulled back 1 shade. I ran for the pedestal. The knight's red eye snapped to me like a dog to a thrown bone. Reeve intercepted, took a sword slash meant for my neck across her shoulder. Bones broke silently, took a fireball meant for my chest, and her left arm came away carbonized to the elbow. She did not stop. I reached inside and pulled out the one I had promised I would not use. Earth and Sky Devouring Evil Wolf's Binding Chain. Activate. 40% of what I had left went in 1 heartbeat. Chains like black iron spilled out of the air and wrapped the knight's limbs. He froze for exactly as long as I needed. I reached the pedestal with a broken straight sword in my hand. I struck the crystal once. The space snapped inward like a held breath released. Pillars gone. Ceiling appeared. A finite stone hall, 30 paces across. The knight staggered. His floor of the impossible had collapsed to a floor of the possible. I looked at Reeve. Her left arm was black. Her right was still hers. Crimson Moon Stigma. Activate on her. My last life potion went empty in my hand. My knees went. My window blurred. Reeve caught fire. Not fire. Moonlight, the color of a heart decided. She closed the distance in 1 step. Her fist went through the knight's chest plate, through him and out the other side. His sword shattered in his hand as he fell. He did not stand up. Silence. She withdrew her arm. He collapsed. Done. She knelt by me. Silver hair, matted with her own blood, against my cheek. Mission complete. Blue Knight destroyed. Please give the next order, my king. I opened a window with a shaking hand and spoke into it. Guardy, Celeste, lower ritual chamber. Descend 50 layers. Bring her up. I closed the window, then I pitched forward. She caught me, sat down cross-legged on the stone, laid me against her chest with her body as a bed. Silver hair fell around my face like a curtain dropped deliberately. The narrator owes you this. She held me the way a person holds something that has been earned, not taken. Guardy arrived 40 minutes later and carried us both up. I slept 2 days. I woke in a 4-story building in the Shields Labyrinth district, a townhouse we had not owned last week. The dominance bar, the one I had watched climb a hair at a time, had crossed 50% in my sleep. Defeating the Azure Knight had transferred its share of the district to us. Transfer gate was now installable. Reeve brought tea in full form, ears back, tail low. She set the cup on my palm. I patted her head. I did not plan it. My hand arrived there the way a hand arrives at a familiar doorknob in the dark. Both of us went still. Good work, I said. Name the reward. Her tail moved once, stopped. I do not deserve, name it. A long pause, a very small voice. Next time you go to the market stalls, could you take me with you? I laughed, an honest laugh, the kind I had not laughed in a long while. I messed up her hair, and her ears went sideways, and her whole face did a thing that did not have a name. I kept the promise. We walked the marketplace the next afternoon until my activity limit was almost gone. Tin lanterns, salted almonds, a silversmith's window where the afternoon caught the plate and threw the light back at her. She looked at a carved wooden wolf for a full minute and did not buy it. I bought it behind her without asking. The narrator will tell you what this was. She wanted to be seen with me where seeing meant nothing. That was the entire list. Gren came to the base on the 3rd afternoon. Tea, small talk about his daughter's recovery. Then, casually, the way men drop the heaviest thing last, he told me the Gardner line descended from black-haired heroes. Not one, plural, across the centuries. Black hair, black eyes, from somewhere else. The family still carried the marker in the blood. He watched my face. I did not move. I thanked him for the tea. I did not move because the floor had moved for me. I had thought I was the first Tsukasa this world had ever met. I was not. Gren's sentence, black-haired heroes, plural, across the centuries, sat where he had left it. I let it sit 2 days. On the 3rd day, I went to inspect the base. 4 stories, pale stone, dark timber, prime street, bought with a bar that crossed 50% while I slept. Gardy met me at the door. An engineer behind him started with, "Our key," and Gardy's open hand arrived in the back of his head at the speed of a kept secret. Upstairs, the 2nd floor coughed. The cough was smoke. The smoke was Celeste. She came down in human form, hair singed. Local materials. Yields differ. Noted. Gardy ran me through the defenses. Lightning net. Gravity confinement. Chain explosion runes under the stair. A flame-piercing spear lattice in the shop ceiling. Scale it back. Capture. Not annihilation. Nothing that kills a customer who opens the wrong door. Celeste tilted her head. The elf tilt of a lesson received. Understood. They had been trained to end threats. The correction cost nothing because I did not raise my voice. Living quarters complete. Shop at 60. I moved in that afternoon. Privacy over polish. I opened the bedroom door. The canopy bed had 4 carved posts, small gems, a gauze veil, a ceremonial footstool. I sighed. My team had thought a king needed a bed a king could be found dead in. Far away in Agartha, Latestwood was learning to bleed. I read the reports. Felk, new warrior chief, half-elf, younger than Wenry and twice as anxious, brought a mixed unit through the gate and stopped in the main avenue because no one had told them a monster city could be beautiful. Baran met them in the white lion armor. Training would be safe, he said. 10 laps. Fireballs from a mage on a high platform. For atmosphere, Baran said, using the word like a tool. The healers screamed once. They finished. 3-minute break. Then the real training started. The next day, they met Gobujiro, the goblin my king once named after a kill. Fights like a man who has lost nothing worth keeping. One of him, all of you, begin. 4 hours. Gobujiro cut them open. The 3rd Legion healers closed the cuts. Felk went down 9 times and stood up 9 times, a dwarf healer crying quietly into his shoulder every 4th revival. By hour 4, Felk's throwing knife came from an angle it should not have, and Gobujiro went down and stayed down. They became a unit. Failing together and standing up together makes units in the one way they are actually made. Reeve was in the doorway. They will do. Cheyenne came on the 6th night. My map bloomed with 20 white points before she knocked. Her guards, placed the way I would have. I disarmed the alert, a small bow, a wrapped gift. Is it all right if I take a little of your time? Gardy turned it into a dinner within 10 minutes. Beagle and his partner arrived with 8 bottles. Reeve cooked Highland turkey. The adventurers fought over meat. Cheyenne studied each piece before she ate it, like a scholar studying a letter. Gardy drank. Cheyenne told me, in her careful practiced voice, that her father would not attend a formal noble dinner on a bet, but would drink 2 hours in a commoner's tavern with a stonemason. The Gardner line treated Shields as a battlefield that never stood down. I thought I should at least learn to act like a noble, since he would not. Talk drifted to elves. Noblewood, supremacist, a curse in this house. Whitewood, closed. Oldwood, older, also supremacist. In most human cities, Biggle said, an elf on a corner was a commodity. In Shields, a neighbor. Then, the full weight this time, Cheyenne laid it down. My family descends from heroes, plural, across the centuries. Black hair, black eyes. The marker carries in the blood. She was not looking at my hair when she said it. That was the kindness. I thanked her. I poured more tea. I did not let my face do anything. Inside, the floor moved the rest of the way. Black-haired summoned sons of somewhere else, arriving across centuries, leaving blood in families like a watermark in paper. I had thought I was the first Tsukasa this place had ever seen. There had been a queue. I was not special. I was late. The narrator will tell you what that felt like, because I could not afford to. It felt like learning the name of the thing you feared in the dark, and realizing the dark is bigger than the thing. Cheyenne left at the 9th bell. 2 days later, Camilla's window opened above my tea. Hallwell, Noblewood's new Grand Elder, risen from Sarahwin's ashes. Half-elf villages emptied overnight along the border. Not skirmishes, a harvest. Bodies not being found because bodies were being used. I sent the final envoy. Stand down. Surrender Hallwell. Rejected at the gate. Hallwell did not let her finish saying the name of her country. The window did not close. My king, I need you to watch this. Live. I am standing in Oldwood. Oldwood's temple. Pale stone. Moss. The elders sat in a half-moon. Forest green robes. Silver hair. The composure of people who had never been interrupted. Hallwell entered in white ceremonial robes. Carved staff. Composed face. He had brought guests. They stood in the shadow of the door. He spoke. Half-elves. Foreign aid. Sarahwin's death. Oldwood's Grand Elder listened with mild skepticism. Then, Hallwell stopped speaking. The guests moved. Shadow creatures. Long-limbed. Red-eyed. Silent. Whether Camilla's design, Hallwell's, or something older he had unsealed, I did not know then. They moved through the elders the way a scythe moves through grass. I watched Hallwell's face. His composure did not slip. It changed, like a mask being set down on a table. The skin stayed. The thing behind it came forward. The tired eyes became bright. The careful mouth opened in a small private smile that had been waiting a long time to arrive. He thanked them, mid-slaughter. A quiet phrase barely above breath. Thank you for the bloodline. And then he closed his eyes the way a man closes his eyes over a sip of good wine. An entire elven nation's leadership, erased in under 2 minutes, in a room 8 centuries old. I did not look away. Confirm, I said. No mind interference? None. I watched. Oldwood agreed to receive him. Oldwood opened its own door. The elves did this to themselves. The window closed. The war I had been preparing for was not the war anymore. Hallwell had sacrificed a neighbor nation to feed whatever he was feeding. He was what the fanatics had produced and failed to contain. Defiled impurities, our sacred bloodline, small cold stones in the paper. That night, I stepped through the new transfer gate in the shop's lower level and walked out in Agartha. Ertina met me, Baran in the map room, Camilla in 10, Melzel. Melzel was behind her with a stack of documents. He bowed. The top 3 sheets slid off his hands. Ertina caught his elbow with 2 fingers. Breathe, he breathed, gave me the summary in a voice that steadied halfway through. Latestwood strong, Felk's unit ready, the large box facility, the thing that would change the shape of the coming war, ready, pending magic stones. Robin was sourcing them. Camilla arrived. Baran rose. We sat at the long table I had sat at before every war. Send the final warning to Noblewood. If it is rejected, and it will be, full action. Ertina nodded without writing it down. Camilla's smile was the small private one. Baran set his hand on the pommel of his sword. Melzel signed the order and passed it to the courier. The courier left. The room went quiet. Outside, the silver light of an Agartha evening sat on the towers the way it always had. Somewhere to the north, an envoy was riding toward a gate that would refuse to open. The war was a sentence away. The courier reached the gate. The gate refused her. She never finished saying the name of her country. That was the sentence. That was the war. Rain in the Latestwood deep forest. Thin, steady, the kind of rain that makes an ambush. Forget it is an ambush because it forgets everything else first. Green cloaks moved through it. 100 and more. Noblewood hunters in formation. Selwyn at their point. Acting hunter chief now. Sarowyn's younger brother. A cold supremacist with a bow on his back and a saber at his hip and centuries of humiliation behind his eyes. He did not reach Latestwood. Wenry stopped him. Warrior chief. She had given the maid's role back to the younger girls and taken up her old place. She stood in the trees with a dozen of her people, and she said the one thing Selwyn had come to say before he could say it. You will not take them, Selwyn answered. Paraphrased, because his voice does not deserve its own line in my story. Half-elves were food, impurities to be fed to the dragons. The sacrifices of Oldwood had been practice. Above the canopy, the wings opened. 6 of them, revived, not skeletal this time, bulked on sacrificed nations, radiant, full-grown, the kind of beauty that happens to a thing only after it has eaten a country. Robin walked into the clearing with his hands in the air. Yahoo, called, and here I am. Selwyn's hand moved, a wind spell, compressed air like a driven spear. Robin came apart, clay, hollow, a golem decoy for a wind spell that did exactly what Robin wanted it to. In a hidden invisible box nested half a kilometer away, the large box finally fed. Robin sat in his cockpit and read Selwyn's attack profile off the instruments and smiled the small private smile an engineer smiles when a variable walks into his equation. Release the fixtures, external reactors, max flow, catapult forward, gravity lenses. Now. The forest split on a rail of pale light. Fafnir launched. A dragon knight of dark metal and mithril, sleek armor over an engine the size of a house, stabilizer fins splayed, sword lance folded against its hip, and a second weapon, a black cursed blade, mounted at its flank. It cleared the tree line on a rising arc and leveled above the rain. 2 months late, boys. Let's make up for it. The duel began. The ground did not wait. Latestwood warriors broke cover in white. Mixed unit, half-elf and dwarf and beastkin fighting under one crest. And Felk led the charge. Felk against Selwyn, the throwing knife chief against the acting hunter of a supremacist line. Staff sword, short dagger, a cloak turning in the rain. Selwyn was better. That is the honest thing to say. 150 years of hunter's training against a half-elf in his 20s. The blade work was not equal. Felk gave ground, and then did not give ground. A dwarf shield bearer put his tower in the path of a lethal strike and took the shock through his shoulders and did not fall. A rabbit beastkin girl, bare-legged for speed, came in low from an angle no elf watches, and her kick put Selwyn off center for exactly 1 heartbeat. Felk's childhood friend, a dwarf healer with a sharp tongue and a young voice, knelt beside a screaming soldier with her staff lit and ignored the arrows at her back. Alchimaira had drilled them in team tactics. The shield, the flank, the frontline healer. The unit fought as one, not because they had been made one, because they had failed together long enough to stand up together. I watched this through Camilla's projection. I did not look away. Above the rain, Robin tested the mother's barrier. Weak handwork. Orvang at 30%. Gondarv on standby. A probe, not a kill. The barrier ate it. Ate the next one too. The mother dragon sat inside a dome of light with 8 wings folded and held the sky the way a god holds a cup. He isolated one of her children. He ran it down on high-speed cruise form, 72 thrusters opening the air behind him like a seam, and when he caught it, he used Gandalf's finishing spell, Blaze Piercing Spear, a lance of compressed fire that went in through a ribbed barrier and came out through the other side. The dragon fell. The next one dove into its place and took a shot meant for the mother, sacrificed itself, roared once, dropped, was silent. Robin stopped smiling. He disengaged, dropped altitude, lined up the approach, and said the thing he had saved for this fight. Demon Sword activation. First reactor, second reactor, connect. Roar, Fafnir. The cursed blade at Fafnir's flank opened its runes. Dainsleif, a dark metal sword, drinking from a well that did not end. Infinite mana at a life force cost, the cost paid later. The bill issued with a smile. Fafnir came back to full burn. He carved through the remaining dragons one at a time. Not brutal, efficient. A thing killing monsters the way a carpenter fits a joint. And then the mother ate her young, the great elder, the one still standing on a distant hill, hands trembling on a staff. Cold rationality boiling into panic, commanded her through the blood control, and she obeyed. She caught the last two offspring in her jaws, and she swallowed them, and the light in her chest went white and wrong, every scale singing on a single note. She pointed her head at Fafnir. 8 magic circles bloomed. Robin transformed, dragon strike form, Orvang extending into a blade of light 500 meters long. A mech become a sword, become a single gesture. Fire. The mother dragon was there. Then the mother dragon was a shape of light. Then the mother dragon was not. On the ground, at the exact breath the sky went white, Felk found his opening. Selwyn flinched. Every Noblewood hunter flinched, because the mother had been the pillar, and the pillar had just stopped being. Felk's throwing knife came from an angle it should not have. His staff sword followed. Paraphrased at the edge of a dying man's hearing, he told Selwyn he was proud to be half-elf. He was not defiled. He had never been. Selwyn heard it. That is what I will say. He heard it. Behind Felk, Latestwood's mages finished a chant they had started 10 minutes before. Crimson Annihilation Fire, a grand spell that needed a whole choir and exhausted mana, and the Noblewood hunters, bunched and broken by the mother's death, were inside its circle when it fell. The young Queen Rafa stood on a rise in a green cloak with her hand raised and her green eyes steady, and she said it for the record. This is our victory. The cheer took the forest. 15 minutes later, in a different forest, a Noblewood Grand Elder was running for his life. He rationalized as he ran. Great Elder had gone catatonic, collapsed in his robes. Somebody had to carry the line forward, and flight was strategy, and he was only doing. Invisible chains snatched him out of the air. Camilla. She lifted him the way one lifts a cat by the scruff. Then she began. She told him, in the voice a kind hostess uses for a guest she has been looking forward to, that the advanced team that had died in Phase 4, she had killed them. She had laid the trail. She told him that the fairy dragon mother had been sealed beyond any living elf's reach, and she had slipped her out, gift-wrapped, into his brother's hands. She told him that the moments of Noblewood's perfect righteousness, the ones he remembered as cold revelation, had been her eye magic placed inside his council chamber like a candle. Every tactical advantage Hallwell had believed he invented, she had given him. The elder's face unmade itself, not collapse, unmaking. A life's purpose going transparent from the inside, while its owner was still inside it. He screamed, the short sound a man makes when he meets the fact that his 8 centuries were a stage someone else had built. Camilla reached into his chest. Her fingers closed on a thing you cannot see with clean eyes. She pulled. His body went doll-like in her other hand, the light behind the green behind the pupils going out in order, top row first. A stealth demon bent from the shadow of a tree. No Noblewood survivors anywhere. The sweep was complete. Secure the body, she said. I want it studied. And then, quiet, to no one, the way one speaks when one thinks the trees are listening, because one has made sure the trees are not. She reflected on the ear, the shortest title, the dark work done outside the king's sight, the work he would not have ordered, the work she had done because she knew he wanted it and knew he could not want it aloud. I am telling you this because it happened. I am not telling you whether she was right. The silver motif again, if you want it. The silver paper knife I cut my own hand with on the first day. The silver pinky ring of a 10-year-old's promise. The silver runed robe of a pseudonym. And now, the silver of a hand pulling a soul from a chest in a rainy forest. The thread runs through. Celebration in Latestwood's small hall. Rafa in green. Helion in traveler's gray. The war pain of victory kept quiet because the dead were still warm. He discussed cultural difference. Alchimaira's habit of resolving disagreement with what his kingdom politely called body language. He did not want that habit to become hers. So, a proposal, a feedback channel, a silver bracelet with an identity-disguising enchantment to be given to Latestwood officials who needed to voice dissent without political cost. The contact name, he said, will be Grimnir. Rifa's eyes widened. She did not say it aloud. The silver motif closed there. Paper knife, pinky ring, ruined robe, and now a bracelet in a queen's palm, a thread traveling across a season and closing in a single held breath. Helion bowed. He left. Reeve caught him in the corridor, took one look at the color under his eyes. Life force meter ticking down again, Dainsleif's bill coming due through the borrowed account of the kingdom that had built it, and told him to rest. He almost did. Camilla arrived at speed. My king, Guardian Celeste have attacked a fortress in the borderlands. He went still. He had not ordered it. When? An hour ago, somewhere else in the castle, Robin slipped Melzel's handcuffs, left the wristband behind, and found a corridor where a small, white-haired half-elf princess was explaining skirt flip theory to a pair of blushing maids. They saw each other, kindred spirits at 20 paces. Robin's grin, Lillifa's grin, a pact formed in the time it takes to say, shall we? Melzel came around the corner a minute later to find a trail of mortified staff and 2 pranksters halfway up the stairs. He bowed to each victim in turn and apologized in the precise voice he used for things he absolutely regretted. The story does not end. It pauses. Somewhere to the north, a fortress is burning, and I did not light it. Somewhere in this castle, a queen is holding a silver bracelet and deciding not to say a name. Somewhere in a corridor, a small princess and a smaller engineer are cackling like the end of a war is an invitation to mischief. The silver light sat on the towers the way it always had. I let it sit.